There
Yeah.
are a lot of good management companies out there, but not all of them are a good fit. And so you have to ask the questions, how do you handle inspections? How do you handle profit and loss? How do you handle budgets? How do you handle unit turnover? If their answers don't align with your vision, keep looking.
Welcome everyone to another edition of Ask the Multifamily Expert. Today I have with me Emily Scoot. I'm sure I did not pronounce her name well, so pardon me, Emily. You do your introduction and introduce yourself properly. The reason why we started off this was due to how I started my journey in the multifamily space. Let me summarize that again for those of us that were not present in the last meeting. So this event was initiated because we want to give people the opportunity to have direct access to experts in multifamily space so that they can continue their journey, because we understand that getting mentorship or having access to experts in multifamily space can be very challenging and also very expensive. So this is just for us to have easy access. I started my journey without money, so it was very difficult for me to have access to the right resources. YouTube was my school, and I had to learn the hard way by doing it and making mistakes. Yes, I learned a lot from making mistakes, but I know there are better ways to avoid unnecessary mistakes if you can just get the knowledge or have the mentorship or ask the right questions. So we are giving people the opportunity to ask the right questions so that they can continue their journey and be successful. Today we have an expert in the student housing space. Next week we're going to have someone that is in asset management. She's also an accountant, but her specialty is in asset management. She's going to tell us the challenges, questions you should be asking as an asset manager. Then we also have someone from the insurance company. We can ask different questions on insurance, especially for those of you that are underwriting. What are things you should look at when you're projecting for your insurance? We also have someone from Craigslist. Craigslist was one of the platforms I got one of my best deals. Is going to tell us about the platform and how to use it to get very good deals. So that is what we'll be doing in the forthcoming weeks. Like, this program is every other Wednesday. So without further ado, let's dive into what we have today. I would like to introduce Emily to us. So Emily, I don't know if you can turn on your camera.
I will need the host to allow that.
Oh, okay, sorry. So I'll allow my team to help me figure that out. Please introduce yourself while we're trying to figure this out.
Hi, my name is Emily Schuett, and I am the managing partner of I360 Property Management. I've been doing this for 15 years. In our time of establishment, we have managed HOAs, student housing, commercial properties, storage units, anything that needs management as far as property goes. We have worked hard to extend into that territory. It has been very rewarding working with BB these last several months with her project and student housing. And I would have to say I agree 100% with what you say. You learn from your mistakes, and you have to evaluate them and then move forward and make it better. And I love the fact that we're sharing and helping other people learn from our mistakes, and then also advancing in this industry.
Okay, thank you so much, Emily. I don't know if you can check and see if you can turn on your camera now.
There we are.
Yes, here we go. So these things happen. So let's dive into why we are here today. Today is more about, we know you have all-round knowledge on property management. You're into residential, single family, commercial, retail, anything, you're into it. But today is specifically for student housing, because we have some people here that have been trying to get into student housing, but they really don't know the ups and downs and why they should. So my first question to you today is, from your own perspective, why do you think anyone should invest in student housing?
Yeah, so there are definitely some upsides to student housing. I think one of the first ones I think of is you're having a higher potential to earn rents. So for that same space, if you were to have a residential unit, you would receive less. But whenever you have multiple people sharing the same space and they're paying individual rents, you can charge more. And typically that's, six or $700 more for that space if it is student housing. I would say another reason to move into student housing is there's additional assurances. Most of these students have not had a job that would be able to sustain the rent. So they have co-signers, and these co-signers own real property. So that stability, that backing for the students is very powerful for anyone looking to invest. Um, I would also say student housing, if it's done right and you have the right branding, it does rent itself. So if you have students who are occupying units and they're happy, they will sell the property to their friends. And so you get this really cool environment where you have maybe someone who's in their third year rooming with individuals in their fourth year. Well, the third year stays back, they get new friends, and then that person will then graduate the year following, and then their friends continue to bring friends in. So it has a lot of pros. And so I would encourage anyone who is able to get into that industry to do so.
Yes, I think that's very right. Because until I went into student housing, I never knew the kind of income you could get from just one unit,
Mhm.
compared to a residential for one unit. The difference is a lot and all that. So moving on to the next question. What are some of the main challenges you face as a property managing company in managing student housing? Because it's not all bed of roses. I know that. Yes, you get more income. You have co-signers as their parents, but
Mhm.
tell us the challenges that you normally face.
Yes. Well, I think you're dealing with an inexperienced renters. So you're definitely dealing with individuals who, for some instances, they've never been away from home. So navigating that, it does require a tremendous volume of communications, not just with the renter, but the renter's co-signers and parents. But I would say for me, the biggest with student housing, the challenges is the annual turnovers. And that happens at a crucial point with summer vacancies. So you have this perfect storm of the lowest income and the highest expenses all happening at the same time, because you have students who are gone for the summer. So there's no income. Your rent roll is at a reduced amount, but you're turning all of these units over. And so that's something that anyone who's looking to get into student housing, they have to be prepared for. You have to think about, what do you do at a time when the revenue's not flowing quite like the other months? So
So
I
let me
would
just
say
ask you the question directly. So in that situation, what do you get to do? How do you mitigate such risk? Because it's really a big risk.
it's a huge risk. What you have to do is anticipate. I have some owners who really struggle and they don't want to look at the downside or the dark side of property management. And I say you look hard into that. You evaluate where the risks are. And so we identify these 2-month periods as a high risk. So what you do is you save and you put money aside, knowing that you will have this downtime. You want to make sure you nest your funds. You also want to build those customer relationships. If you have a good vendor who worked hard for you, once the job is done, lock them into a contract for the next summer. Begin to anticipate what those bills and expenses are going to be. If you know that you're going to have 2 months where you have vacancies, then cut back on the services you don't need. Don't have the grass cut as frequently. Don't have pest control as frequently. If you don't have anybody living in the units, then you don't need to have routine pest control as frequently. So there's many things you can do to reduce the expenses, but it's planning. It's being intentional about how your dollars are spent. Any extra money at the end of a month is not a bonus. It is allocated for something somewhere down the line. So I would say being very intentional about risk management.
Okay, is there any concession or something that you can give to students to see if they can extend the 10 monthlies to 12 monthlies? Is there anything you try to do to make it appealing for them to stay longer?
So we have converted to 11 and 12-month leases just because it makes it a lot easier with the turnover process. And if a student comes to us and says we'd like to go month to month for the summer, we absolutely say yes. We will figure out how to make that work. Our leases are structured though so that we can rearrange students. If they match themselves, then they stay together as a unit. If it's a student asking for us to match, then if they stay during that period, we're happy to work with them, but we will relocate them. So we're strategic about where our vacancies are so we can make sure that we spend our dollars for unit turns well.
So let's discuss the elephant in the room, because just barely 2 years ago, we had the COVID-19, and that
Mm,
was really a blow for student housing, because students had to go home. And we saw a lot of student housing properties foreclosed during that period.
yeah.
In short, one of the properties we picked up was actually foreclosed. So in that type of case, how do we mitigate those kind of risks when we have something like another pandemic? What do we get to do?
Absolutely. Well, you think outside of the box. If students are no longer living at the property, you say, how can we reinvent this space and make it enticing to residential? How can we marry the two so that we don't close the door to students, but that we make both an option? And so that's what we've done. We have taken a portfolio and we have merged the two. Now we're being strategic about it, kind of having wings of students and wings of residential. But that's how you anchor your portfolio. You look at it and say, that was a high risk. And so COVID is not something that, COVID happened and no one expected it. What might happen is a university changes their policies or their procedures. And we actually had that. It was the perfect storm. We had the university, they had a shortage of housing. And so all these developers were developing communities for student housing off campus. Well, once these communities were developed, the campus changed their policies and said, well, now we're requiring first and second year students to live on campus. Before, it was an option for them to move off campus on their second year. They changed that, and then all of a sudden, these developers who expected 100% occupancy, they couldn't get it above 40% or above 50%, and it crushed their
Hmm.
numbers. And so that's where you have to be able to pivot and say, all right, we wanted students, but we're willing to consider residential. And I think as long as you keep an open mind and say, how do we reinvent the space? How do we make it enticing? You'll do fine.
So the bottom line is keep reinventing and thinking out of the box to avoid this kind of risk. So for someone that is a newbie, let's say I want to go into this, would you advise that I manage it myself or call people like you to help me manage such property? So let me know.
So, so for anyone new to property management, I would say absolutely not. Start with a single family home, figure out if you like that. If you do, then times it by 120. So when you're dealing with students, say you have a property of 120 beds, you're not just dealing with the student, you're dealing with the possibility of one or two or more parents. So we're taking and adding a lot of extra headache. That being said, for individuals who want to self-manage, if you have the resources, if you have the time and you have the knowledge, then I would say that's fine. That's an option. But you will only ever grow as long as you have the bandwidth. So if that absorbs all your time, then that community is the most that you'll ever grow. Having a third party, a property management company, allows you to utilize their resources, and then it frees you up so that you can continue investing in other assets and acquisitions. So it really comes down to, what do you want out of your free time?
You are very right. Because I remember managing just a single residential can be a lot of headache. Because you said something, you said we are actually dealing with inexperienced renters. So that is a lot of headache. I would advise you to get a third party manager to help you with student housing. It needs some kind of professionalism.
Yeah. I would say my recommendation is that the investor really spend time vetting the management company. There
Yeah.
are a lot of good management companies out there, but not all of them are a good fit. And so you have to ask the questions: how do you handle inspections? How do you handle profit and loss? How do you handle budgets? How do you handle unit turnover? If their answers don't align with your vision, keep looking, because you're going to not only have a very difficult industry, because it can be difficult, but then you're also not going to be on the same page with your management company.
So, Emily, full disclosure, let me tell you the journey we went through before we finally got your company, i360, to help us with managing our student housing. We interviewed a lot of people and it was a mess. Not that they were not professionals in managing multifamily, but they were not professionals in student housing. So we were in between looking for someone that understood how to manage student housing, not just the regular multifamily. So it was a lot of interviews back and forth. So to align with what you said, it's very important because the property management aspect is very critical and all that. Before ask you the next question, before we picked up one of our student housing property, we noticed a lot of damages from the students. We had a lot of poles dug on the floor to the ceiling, and students, students can be very, very innovative. So they cost a lot.
Innovate.
Let's keep it that way.
Yes.
So they cost a lot of damages to the property. So how would you mitigate such risk?
Students can live in the space very hard. Damage happens. So I think I would first just put that out there. We're risk management, we're asset development, but damage happens. So you have to plan for that. What you should not do is wait to address damage until the end of the lease. If you don't have a plan in place to document and to get inside the units throughout the lease, then you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You have to be careful though, because these are their homes and you don't want to be intrusive. So you have to do it through a customer service lens. Again, the student is going to rent the unit out to the next generation. So if they had a bad experience, if they feel like you're micromanaging them, they're not going to recommend you. So how do you protect yourself and still have goodwill with the resident? We do this by putting eyes on the property, by giving customer service. So we schedule filter changes and smoke detector checks. It's a safety initiated inspection of the unit for their benefit. But the crew is absolutely trained to check for unauthorized animals, smells, bugs, holes in the walls, stains in the carpet. So they're trained to identify those things. Then they communicate back to the leasing office, the community manager, and then we address the leasing violation aspect or the documentation. If we identify that damage has been done to the property mid-lease, we address it mid-lease. Do not wait to take it out of the security deposit. There will never be enough security deposit, and damage begets damage. If they damage it and they're not held accountable, they will continue to damage.
What are the strategies you use to manage maintenance issues effectively on your student housing?
So I think this goes hand in hand. I talked about the investor properly aligning with a management company, and this is also a management company properly aligning with the investor. It's important that we ask the right questions. So for us, I like to take the proactive strategy. If there's a leak or if there's problems with a property and you know it's going to persist until something large is done. And I'll give you an example. If you have a toilet that's leaking and all of the toilets were put in at the same time, and there's 2 toilets per unit and there's 120 units, that's 240 risks that you have to deal with. Then you layer that with saying you have levels to your properties. If a toilet on the 3rd floor leaks, you're going to damage all of the floors. So the best medicine when you can is to be proactive. If you have identified a common problem at the property, address it. Get a CapEx budget put together, replace them. That's going to do many things. It's going to keep the damage low. It's going to keep your tenants happy, and it's going to keep the water bill low. So if you're a student housing and you're providing those utilities for your students, you're on the hook for all of that water bill. So you really want to make sure you manage any risk that is going to inflate your risk. I also say if you can be proactive, I worked with another owner and all of the water heaters were going roughly at the same time. And we started to pick up a trend that we were replacing 1 or 2 water heaters every month. And we knew we had roughly 120 more to go. And what we did is we partnered with a plumber. And we said, if we were to proactively purchase 30 water heaters, can we get it at a discount? We have the ability to house it. And we did. We purchased 30 water heaters at discount. So now on our budget, whenever we look at a water heater replacement, instead of it being $1,400, we're only seeing the labor of $200 because we've prepaid for the water heater and we got a discount. So I would say that would be my primary strategy, is to be proactive. And to
Yes.
partner with an owner who shares that.
This is what I tell people when they're trying to get under contract on a deal. They need to make provisions for CapEx. Regardless if the property is an A class, B class, C class. One of the issues we're having with one of our A class property is toilet leakages. And it's an A class property. So it's very important when you're doing your underwriting, you take cognizance of things can break, regardless of if they're new or if you have an A class property, they can still break. And you just need to have that provision to ensure that you mitigate that kind of risk. So what are the strategies you think we can ensure that a property remains competitive? Because student housing most times is found in between other student housing properties. So why will a student prefer yours to
Yeah.
another person's student housing? So what do you do to bring them to yours?
Yeah, so keeping up with the Jones is a real thing, and every property manager should always be monitoring their competitors. If you don't know what your competitor is doing, they're doing it better than you, more than likely. So steel sharpens steel. So if you're monitoring what your competitors are doing, let's hope they come up with an idea that you didn't have, but build upon it. I would also say the best piece of advice I can give, your best ideas for your community's success will always come from the resident. It will always come from the student. They have the best ideas. They're living there. They know what they like, they know what they want, and they know what they don't like. So one of the things we started doing is meeting with students, giving them a corner where they can meet with the property manager, and then they can just tell us what they like, what they don't like, what they like about other communities. Why are they not staying? Why are they not renewing? If someone doesn't want to renew, I really want to talk with them. What did someone else have to offer? And I think if you have that open dialogue, if you have that conversation, you're always going to be aware, and it gives you the ability to capitalize on making changes that are going to make you more competitive. It doesn't always come down to price. I'll give you an example. You
Mhm.
might be the highest priced rent, but you're offering a service that is valued more than that. So if you have a student who does not want to put utilities in their name, but they value paying a higher rent, an inflated rent, and having all utilities included, that's a value. So while another community may have lower rents, they're not including the utilities. If other communities aren't providing furniture, then make that a competitive offering of your community that you have furniture for rent. So there's a lot of different things. Currently, I'm exploring, we have a gym at the student housing community. Well, I'm exploring to see if we can't get a lower contract rate with a gym that's close by that's larger, to see if our students would like that. Would that be an asset to them? So co-working with other entities downtown, wherever your community is a really good idea as well.
Yeah, so because I remember you sitting down with one of the students and you were able to get some ideas from their own lens. You were able to listen to them and they gave you a lot of brilliant ideas. And I think we're executing some of them right now.
We are, yeah. So one of the just briefly, one of the ideas, we were charging for over the summer rental if
Mhm.
someone wanted to keep their stuff inside the unit during the summer. And because of that, most students were saying, absolutely not. I'm just going to take my stuff home and then come back with everything in 2 months. The moment they take all of their stuff out is the moment that is now a unit turn. And
Mhm.
whatever rent you would have gotten or not gotten for that unit for the summer, you're going to more than double it in unit turn cost. And the
Mhm.
student sat there and looked at me and said, wouldn't it be a great idea for you to reduce your expenses by also reducing the expenses to me? And I said, I
Why
wish I had a position to hire you. That's a great idea.
Yes. So thank you so much, Emily. The last question I have for you. You are an expert in both multifamily, residential, and student housing. Would you advise anyone to do just student housing instead of residential? So this is the truth segment. What do you advise? Should anybody really do it? Looking at the good and the bad.
I would absolutely advise someone to enter into the world of student housing with the understanding I always encourage diversity in portfolio. If you have all of the same thing and you don't move into different territories, you will be competing with yourself in the market. And that is an awful feeling to know that you've just taken a tenant from yourself. So diversify your portfolio.
Thank you so much. And we've come to the end of the question and answer segment. And I'm sure anybody that have been listening to you would have gotten very knowledgeable information from you. So just to recap on everything you said that student housing is good because of the income it produces compared to multifamily. And you also said that we should also bear in mind that we are dealing with inexperienced renters. So we should be proactive and think out of the box. You said there's a place for customer relationship and open dialogue, and we should ensure that we constantly add value to remain competitive in the market. And we should, as much as we want to go into student housing, we should diversify our portfolio. I'm sure that is just a recap of the so many good information that you gave to us. So Emily, are there any takeaways you want people to go on with? What are your final words on everything you said today?
My takeaway is truly, I would say, if you want to get into property management and you have no background in it, start with a property management company. There are so many laws that you have to be aware of, and they come with a specialty. They have a team who specializes in each individual thing, as opposed to one individual who has to be a specialist in everything. So I would say take the leap. If you can't do it on your own, then create an entity or a group with other individuals who are willing to collaborate and put money in to invest. And you don't have to take on the biggest animal. You can take on a small investment, learn from that. Remember, small investments mean small mistakes. Learn from those small mistakes, then take on the bigger investments. If you want to start with a big investment with limited experience, get a property management company.
Good. So how can they connect with you?
Yeah, they can connect with i360 through our website. They can give us a call. We are happy to have the conversation. And I'll be honest, I spend a lot of time educating owners who want to self-manage because I believe we're stronger as a community if a community as a whole have the same standards in how we operate. So we're happy to have those conversations.
Thank you so much, Emily, for the time. I learned a lot today, and I know that the audience also did. For next week, we'll be having an asset manager expert on the call where you can ask everything asset manager. And we also, after that, we're going to have a sponsor. So if you want to take on deals, what are the things you need to do? So we'll be bringing in a sponsor. He was an astronaut engineer and all that, but right now it's a multifamily investor. So he's going to be here and he's going to talk to you about being a sponsor on a multifamily. Then after that, we're going to have an insurance broker on this call that will tell you everything about insurance. So we have a lot of things packaged for everyone. So come along with your questions. And every other Monday, we talk about everything asset management. Besides getting a deal and acquiring a deal, you need to know how to operate it. Operation has become the most valuable asset you can have in investing in multifamily. So despite the fact that you might not want to be an operator, but you are an investor, you want to put in your money into an asset, you need to know how those assets are managed. If you want to know more about us, visit us on www.oceancf.com. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Emily, thank you for spending this afternoon with us. And I hope you enjoyed your time.
I definitely did. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.